Okay, so get this, an AI that can simulate an entire society to predict the future. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, what if I told you it was built by a 20-year-old student and he did it in just 10 days? Yeah, that's exactly the story we're diving into right now. Spawn thousands of AI agents, drop them into a simulated world, watch the future emerge. I mean, that's the kind of project description that gets your attention, right? And it got everyone's attention. A project called MirrorFish shot to the #1 trending spot on GitHub globally. We're talking beating out new stuff from OpenAI, from Google, from Microsoft, the big guys. So what in the world is this thing? Okay, you really have to look at this timeline because it's just wild. The creator, Guanghong Jiang, is a 20-year-old student at Beijing University of Posts and Telecommunications. So he's doing an internship, and he just starts what he calls vibe coding. You know, super fast, intuitive, just going with the flow. 10 days later, boom, he's got a functional demo. The very next day, he lands $4.1 million in funding. And before you know it, his project is the most talked about thing on the planet for coders. Think about that. An undergrad, in 10 days, builds a system that can simulate 1 million AI agents all interacting with each other. A few years ago, a single person doing that? No way. Just not possible. So how does an investment like that happen so fast? Well, it's all thanks to this big idea from the investor, a guy named Chen Tiantou. He's a huge believer in what he calls the super individual theory. And the idea is pretty simple but also profound. With today's AI tools, a single driven person can pull off what used to take an entire company to build. And Guo story? I mean, it's the poster child for that exact theory. And Chen absolutely put his money where his mouth is. We're talking $4.1 million, committed to incubate MirrorFish within 24 hours of seeing just a rough demo video. Let that sink in for a second. One day, Guanghong Jiang is an intern, and literally the next day, he's a CEO. That's the kind of insane confidence this project sparked in people. Now, this is a fantastic story about one brilliant student, for sure, but it's actually much, much bigger than that. This project, MirrorFish, is a huge clue that points to a much larger dynamic going on in the world, specifically the AI race between the US and China. And this is where we get to the heart of two totally different competing philosophies. According to a recent report from the Brookings Institution, the US is kind of obsessed with the race to AGI, that's artificial general intelligence, the theoretical, all-powerful super AI. But China, their focus seems to be completely different. It's all about practical application. Get these products into the hands of as many people as possible and do it fast. And Hamza Chaudhry from the Future of Life Institute adds a really important layer to this. He basically says, hey, it's not really a story of two whole countries racing toward AGI. It's more like a few big companies in Silicon Valley are obsessed with that goal. Meanwhile, China's national strategy is way more focused on weaving practical AI into the fabric of their entire economy. So you have to ask, how did this kind of environment get created? This intense focus on practical, super fast deployment? Well, it was no accident. It's the result of a very deliberate, very long-term national game plan. Yeah, a report back in 2018 called Deciphering China's AI Dream really laid it all out. It broke the strategy down into 4 key parts. First, hardware, a massive push to catch up and build their own domestic AI chips. Second, data. And we'll get back to this, but leveraging their huge centralized market is key. Third, algorithms. That means growing and poaching top-tier research talent. And finally, number 4, commercialization. The state is just pumping money into the ecosystem to get things moving. Okay, let's just hang on that data point for a second, because you really can't overstate how important this is. The projections are saying that by 2030, China could hold almost a third of all the data in the entire world. And in the world of AI, where data is the new oil, having access to that much raw material, well, it's a massive, massive strategic advantage for building more powerful AI. Alright, so that's the big picture, the national strategy behind all this. But let's zoom back in on the project itself. How does MirrorFish actually work? How on earth do you simulate an entire society inside what they call a digital sandbox? Well, the core idea is something called swarm intelligence. And you gotta forget about one single, super smart AI calling all the shots. Instead, picture something more like an ant colony or one of those incredible flocks of starlings you see, a murmuration. There's no single bird in charge, right? No leader yelling orders. All that complex, beautiful, coordinated behavior just emerges from thousands of individual birds following a few simple rules. MirrorFish just takes that exact same idea and applies it to us, to human social behavior. So how do you even test something like this? Well, in one of their first demos, they took a real-life controversy that happened on the campus of Wuhan University. They fed all the details into MirrorFish, and the system spun up thousands of little AI agents, each one representing a different point of view. Then they just let them go. They let them interact, argue, try to persuade each other, and watched as it mapped out how public opinion could ripple and change over time. And then for a totally different kind of test, a more creative one, they turned to classic literature. There's this famous 18th century Chinese novel, but the ending was lost to history. So the team fed the first 80 chapters into the AI. It created thousands of agents, one for each character, complete with their personalities and memories from the book. And then they let the characters themselves interact to generate a brand new, collective ending for the story. How cool is that? Okay, but let's pump the brakes for a second here. We have to be real about the limitations. For starters, there are no real accuracy benchmarks yet. I mean, a simulation that looks plausible isn't the same thing as one that's actually predictive. Second, the AI agents themselves have biases. They can fall into herd behavior, which can lead to really skewed or super polarized results. It's also crazy expensive. A single simulation with 10,000 agents can set you back hundreds of bucks. And then there's the biggest one, the philosophical limit. Simulated people are not real people, period. Every model has assumptions baked right into it. So, okay, even with all those limitations in mind, what could a technology like this actually mean for the future? This is where things get really profound and also where some very urgent questions start to pop up. I mean, the potential here is just staggering. Just think about it. A government could test a new law in a simulation to spot all the unintended consequences before it ever becomes reality. Public health officials could model not just how a virus spreads, but how misinformation spreads right alongside it. You could use this to try and forecast financial markets, or for political campaigns to test out their messaging. The possibilities are, well, they're genuinely world-changing. And that leaves us with one final and frankly unavoidable question. The technology behind MirrorFish is open source. That means anyone, you, me, anyone, can download it, use it, build on top of it. But the ethical framework, the rulebook for how to responsibly use a tool that can literally simulate and maybe even predict what we're all going to do, that doesn't exist yet. So as this incredible power becomes available to everybody, the real question is, who's going to build it?